Dangerfield. Hello people, we're going to talk about a new low. That's it. Starting a video with a little bit of a nose pick. We're going to talk about a new low in the dark web marketplace ecosystem, we could call it. So a few basics for people who know nothing about this. So the dark web, as it's known, is another internet where you can make purchases of contraband, drugs, weapons, methods, techniques and tools for frauding people, like carding, which is where you get a load of credit and debit card details and you just spend them at will. I imagine most of you have heard of the dark web by now, but there's been a new low, and you know, in that environment, a new low is, you've got to go pretty low, but someone's managed it. So let's start from the beginning. What is it? So when I say it's a different part of the internet, to access the dark web, you need to use the Tor browser, Tor. And the Tor browser, correct me if I'm wrong. Hang on, I'm actually going to do some research. I'll be back in a minute. Yeah, I was right. The Tor browser was originally designed, invented by American naval military. And then there was a group of people who called themselves the Tor Project to continue to develop it. Now, the Tor browser gives you access to the dark web. It was originally designed, though, for people to be able to communicate with each other anonymously in countries where perhaps they might not be able to do that sort of thing, as far as I know. But you can't surf the dark web. You can get the Tor browser from Google. You just go on Google and search Tor browser and you'll get it, download it, install it, and then you've got access to the dark web. But you can't surf, showing me age, you can't surf the dark web. You need addresses, but you can get them on the ClearNet, and the ClearNet is your Google, your DuckDuckGo, your standard browsers. So you'd get you'd go to somewhere like, I don't think that site's still up, but there'd be a site like deep.web, something like that anyway, and it would list all the marketplaces and give you their URLs, their addresses. And you know, like on the ClearNet you have .com, .org, .net. Well, the Tor browser uses .onion, and I think that's got some reference to you have to peel off many layers to actually discover who's using it. That might just be something I made up, but so's the rest of this video. Well, about 40% of it will be. So you'd get your .onion address, for instance. The Silk Road was the first dark web marketplace where you could, you know, it blew everyone's minds because you could go there and imagine eBay but for drugs and guns and chemicals that you shouldn't be able to buy and things like that. Quite, you know, there's a lot of ethical can the drug war be won? How do you win the drug war? What, people stop taking drugs? Yeah, I wouldn't count on it. I don't know if that's going to happen. So, you know, much like with prostitution laws, you know, there's a reason that there's young, vulnerable girls walking around the streets with absolutely no protection because they're not allowed in England, because they're not allowed to be in a house with a madam and security. That's illegal, you know. So if you're buying drugs on the streets, you have to deal with some pretty dodgy people in some pretty dodgy locations with some pretty awful situations occasionally happening, and it removed all of that. You know, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Let me know in the comments. I mean, I'm just going to tell you the story because there's been this new low, and I will get to it. So what you did, you signed up for the, the Silk Road was the first one. He went to prison. Ross Ulbricht was his name, better known on the internet as Dread Pirate Roberts. And he set up this big online marketplace, the Silk Road, and it changed everything. It was like, wow. In the 80s, if you bought a little bit of weed, you'd be terrified walking through town. Because if the old Bill caught you with a little bit of weed, you're in trouble. Whereas nowadays, it's crazy for me to see that in America, you can just go, oh, I've got a bad back, can you give me a card? And then you can just go to a dispensary and say, yeah, I've got a really bad, I'm a medical marijuana user. Can you do me ½ ounce of green crack and a ½ ounce of amnesia haze? Yeah. So it changed everything really for that whole scene. Now, the way it worked was your money, you had a wallet, you had a Bitcoin or other crypto, usually Ethereum, occasionally Monero, on that particular marketplace. And so you'd upload a few Bitcoin into it, and then you'd say, okay, I want to buy a bit of that. Let's just say I'm going to buy ½ ounce of amnesia haze. And you'd find a vendor, and they'd have reviews, and you'd go to the one that had the most reviews, the most positive reviews, and you wouldn't go to the one that had terrible reviews, never arrived, crap, rubbish, just like eBay. And then the money was held in escrow, so it hasn't got to the vendor. I mean, the escrow system is used in normal business outside the dark web. It's just a way of safely making transactions. So you'd make the transaction on the marketplace. The money would be held in escrow by the people who run the marketplace. You then send your name and address to the vendor, but what you did, you'd have a method of encrypting it. It's called a private key. And it would encrypt your name and address, and only the vendor could decrypt it. So even the marketplace couldn't, and if the site ever got raided and the FBI found it, they'd go through all the information. They couldn't decrypt your information, apparently. And then when your parcel arrived via Royal Mail or USPS the next morning, you'll be like, yay! And then you'd go back onto the marketplace and you'd say, yep, I've got it. And the marketplace would release the funds from escrow to the vendor, and the transaction has happened and everything's good. Or bad, let me know in the comments. So when the Silk Road went down, loads of others came up. Classics was Alphabay. And Alphabay has been estimated to have been turning over 20, 40, 60, who knows, $1 million a year. No one really knows. Can you trust the people telling you how much these markets made? I mean, the dark web market in 2021 we're only talking about a few years ago, was estimated to be around $4 billion. There was $4 billion a year being moved around online dark web Tor browser marketplaces. Back in sort of Alphabay, Dream Market, the golden years, you could probably triple that number. And it didn't destroy the street market, because your regular homeless guy who hasn't got a house likely hasn't got a computer. So, but I can tell you for a fact it caused problems. People were disappearing. There were these dangerous people who you had to meet in dangerous places with no security or comebacks. When you got home and you had a ½ ounce of oregano, no. So it was all great if you were into that sort of thing, lovely. But then the first exit scam happened. Evolution Market. So what would happen? You'd have, because you have to put money into your marketplace wallet. You'd often just upload a few $100. You know, at the time, I don't know, 0.002 Bitcoin, whatever, doesn't matter, and you just leave it in there, and you know, come like Wednesday, if you wanted something for the weekend, and people. These weren't only little purchases of a bit of weed. You could buy 10 kilos of heroin. You could buy 50 kilos of cocaine. You could buy 100 kilos. You know, there were some big movers on these marketplaces. You know, global drug dealers set up shop on these marketplaces, and why wouldn't they? You know, that's their business, you know. If they can cut out all that street hassle and 2 or 3 people on the chain just by getting some computer geek in to do all that, well, they're making a lot more money and they're not having to take as much risk. And then there was the first exit scam, and it was a market called Evolution. So think about it. There's hundreds of thousands, if not more, millions of people who've got their marketplace crypto wallet, and they've all got a few $100 in there, or even just $50 or $1,000. But all the vendors, well, they might have $50,000. They might have just had an escrow release of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. Who knows? You know, it's all, you have to estimate all this stuff. But if you're selling 50 ounces of cocaine, that's quite a big. I mean, in those days, you're looking at about 35,000 for a kilo of pretty good cocaine. So if you're buying 10 of them, that's quite the amount sitting in escrow. The punter says, I got it. The money's released to the vendor. So there's a lot of money sitting in these marketplaces on a daily basis that people haven't pulled out. So when the marketplace does an exit scam, the FBI haven't shut them down. They haven't been found. They've just one day thought, you know what? There's 25 mil sitting in escrow today and in other people's wallets. Let's just take the lot. Let's just take it. And so they shut the shop and take all the money that was there. And that's an exit scam.
Intermission.
I thought I should just mention I thought I should just mention this. The bloke behind Alphabay, he got found, he got arrested, he got put in a Thai prison. Alexandra Cazes, I think his name is. He was worth apparently about 30 million in cash, had properties all over the world, luxury motors, a stash of bitcoins that no one to this day knows, as far as I can remember. And he killed himself in a Thai prison. I think he was 25 years old. Nasty old game, innit? And you try to talk to people, and slowly people realise, nah, the people who run the site have just done the off with all the money. And so then the dark web markets entered a period of there will be an exit scam at some point. You know, you adapted your behaviours accordingly. You didn't leave money sitting in your wallet. You know, you took it out. I mean, maybe a tenner or something, 20 quid, you'd leave it in there. But the vendors, they marketplaces used to have things like, excuse me, if you were a vendor, you could only take it out when it hit a certain amount. And new marketplaces changed those rules because vendors weren't willing to do it. No, I'm not going to sit waiting to it 50 grand before I can take my money out. I want to be able to take it out as soon as it's there. So for marketplaces to be successful, they had to change the way they run things. However, you know, you are sleeping sometimes. There are different time zones, all sorts of things. You might just be busy and I'll log on tonight. You know, you get a bit complacent. But you tended to think at some point there would be an exit scam. And, you know, props to Alphabay, props to Dream, and a couple of other markets. They didn't. They actually said, we're closing down. You've got 30 days to buy as much contraband and illegal items as you want, and to remove your money from the wallet because we're closing down. It's getting too risky. And then other marketplaces, they've done exit scams. And like I said, people sort of thought it would happen at some point. But there's been a new low. Incognito Marketplace. It done an exit scam about, where are we now? About just over a week and a half. 10 days ago. They done an exit scam. They run off with everyone's money. Ha 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 ha. But that's not the end of it. Then they put up on their site, and I'm going to read this to you. I'll actually read it to you. Hang on. Expecting to hear the last of us yet? Crazy English. We got one final little nasty surprise for y'all. We have accumulated a list of private messages, transaction info, and order details over the years. You'll be surprised at the number of people that relied on our auto-encrypt functionality. And by the way, your messages and transaction IDs were never actually deleted after their expiry. So their auto encryption that they offered was just a lie. So when you sent your name and address to the vendor, that was just open for, they've got that information, that they can see it and read it. It wasn't encrypted in any way. And also messages were supposed to expire after a couple of weeks. No, they collected them all. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, if anything were to leak to law enforcement, I guess nobody never slipped up. We'll be publishing the entire dump of 557,000 orders and 862,000 crypto transaction IDs at the end of May. Whether or not you and your customers' info is on that list is totally up to you. And yes, this is an extortion. This hasn't happened before. There's been plenty of exit scams, but outright extorting people because they want you to now pay them to not have your info when they dump all that data. So as for the buyers, we'll be opening a whitelist portal for those to remove their records as well in a few weeks. Thank you all for doing business with Incognito Market. And there you go. Underneath that, you've got a little bit there where you can select your vendor level. And for vendor level 1, it's $100. For vendor level 2, $300. $1,000 for vendor level 3. $1,500 for vendor level 4 and $20,000 for vendor level 5. And apparently if you pay that money and click purge records, you can delete your customers' records. And there's another sheet that shows you all the people who've supposedly already paid. And that bit about customers, they're going to do another one of these for customers. This is for vendors. They're going to do another one for customers. I imagine it'll be a bit cheaper. But here's two things. Why would you trust these people? Why would you give them any more money and say, oh, yeah, okay, can you delete all my info and all my customers' info? Here's 20 grand. Because they'll just go, yeah, nah. Why would we? You're going to have to give me another 20 grand. How about that? Surprise, surprise. Here's another nasty surprise. And it's the same for the customers. You know, if they sent you a thing, oh, you know, you can get rid of your information. No. But here's the real big one. They're dealing with very dangerous people here. The people who run this site are dealing with Colombian drug cartels. These aren't nice people, and these people have got contacts in the FBI, in the CIA. These people can be found, and I, for one, wouldn't want to be trying to extort people like that. I wouldn't want to extort anyone, but if I had to, it wouldn't be massive global drug cartels with people and contacts in US investigation. It's just all very terrible. I couldn't talk then, because just the thought of being the people who run this site, knowing that there's people coming for you, and the chances are they're going to find you. I've had people after me. I've been chased around the country by people wanting to kill me, and they were just sort of low-level drug dealers, and it was hideous. But Peruvian, Colombian, Bolivian, South American drug cartels, no thanks. Let me know I've still got the fear on. It's bringing it all back. Let me know what you think about this. What do you think about the ethics of the dark web? I mean, the new markets will still arrive. There's still a couple floating about. Let me know what you think about all of it. Or just say something totally unrelated. Ta-da!